As earlier this week, the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, confirmed she will proscribe the protest group Palestine Action under anti-terror laws. If passed in Parliament tomorrow, this move would make membership and support of the group illegal. The announcement came days after activists from the group broke into RAF Bryce Norton in Oxfordshire, spray painting two military planes red, an incident Ms Cooper called disgraceful and causing millions of pounds of damage. Last Monday, hundreds supporting the group gathered in Trafalgar Square, where there was a number of clashes with officers. This included a report that Jewish counter-protesters were forced to hide on a double-decker bus to escape a mob chanting Zionist scum, whilst a woman who wore an outfit depicting an Auschwitz victim was questioned by police. And a few days ago, an undercover Telegraph reporter exposed that Palestine Action is preparing to attack RAF bases and drone factories as they recruit more members across the UK. But is it right that they are to be prescribed as a terrorist organisation? Joining me now to debate this is broadcaster and journalist Jonathan Sacerdoti and founder of Our Fight, Mark Birbeck. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you? Hi. This is an interesting debate because both of you are friends, so much so that you like to dress the same when you appear on telly.
Always.
And Mark, your position is interesting because I would argue that the Jewish people in the UK haven't really had a greater friend than you over the last year and a half. You've been out there at these counter-protests, yet you're arguing that this organisation should not be prescribed.
Yeah. Do I need to say any more? Thank you.
That's the end of the debates. We are done.
Thank you very much for having me on. And yes, we are currently friends. So we'll see how it goes. So my position here, and you're quite right. You showed the footage there from Trafalgar Square on Monday, and you're right about the young Jewish guys being trapped on a bus. And I was also there. With another counter-protest, and our reason for being there was to expose the free speech nature or the hypocrisy of the people who support Palestine Action, the fact that they were shouting, as you say, Zionist scum. But my main argument for not prescribing Palestine Action is I think that what we have at the moment is a government that has no clear strategy on terrorism. So we've got a government that, or a party that in the past said that they would proscribe the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, that they cannot bring themselves to support wholeheartedly Israel in its actions to defang Iran over its nuclear program. They were even on the phone to the foreign minister shortly afterwards. So they're very confused. They're very lacking in... they're toothless in terms of challenging terrorism, and particularly we're about to, in just over a week, it will be the anniversary of 7/7. So we really should be asking ourselves, can this government keep us safe? Can this government really challenge terrorism? And the fact that they are not prepared to prescribe the IRGC, but they are prepared to put Palestine Action on the same level as Hamas, ISIS, Hizb ut-Tahrir, Boko Haram, to me, it's just indicative of the fact that they don't know what they're doing and they're confused.
So, I mean, that's a good point. The other thing, Jonathan, that people would argue is that this is a threat to all of our free speech. If you're prescribing a group like Palestine Action, what does this mean for other groups who... I mean, are they really a terrorist organisation?
There's definitely a spectrum of terrorist organisations, and I would say that Palestine Action are quite a pathetic bunch and maybe aren't quite comparable with ISIS or Hamas. However, it's not a freedom of speech issue. It's not speech. When you break into the biggest airbase in the country or the most important and trash the aeroplanes, that's not speech. Nobody has the right to do that under any political cause, under any ideology. Similarly, other acts of vandalism and basically acts designed to terrorise and instill fear into people carried out by groups like that are not about free speech. Slashing art, pictures of Lord Balfour, not free speech. In fact, not speech at all. Speech doesn't involve knives. Speech doesn't involve red paint. This is not a free speech issue. I'm all in favour of free speech. These people can speak as much as they like about their idiotic, moronic, underinformed views. But when it comes to trying to scare the population into agreeing with them because their arguments are too weak and because their factual basis for their opinions is minimal, then I'm not in favour of them being able to do it through acts designed to make us afraid. And in fact, I think the government should stand up and ban them as a terrorist group, as they're planning to. I think they should also ban the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, because they are also a terrorist group, as we've seen. I spent 12 days in Israel hiding in bunkers from ballistic missiles launched by that terrorist group on civilians. It doesn't mean that they are not terrorists either. It doesn't mean that the government should be showered in praise for managing to make one rather pathetic but terrorist, apparently, group in the UK classified and not the IRGC. We can do all of it. The government should be a little bit more ambitious than it is, rather than this backwards, forwards, not quite sure what they think about Israel and its defence of the free world, its defence of the UK in getting rid of the IRGC threat or minimising it. It can do all of these things. It's choosing not to. If they at least get this one small thing done at home, that will be a good first step, and then they can show that they maybe aren't as spineless as people think and start moving on to the bigger threats as well.
Yeah, we've got a few supporters there. They don't want to clap you, but they agree with you. But, Mark, I mean, this is a national security issue as well. If we've got our planes being attacked, being put out of commission, if they have plans for further attacks, surely that is the definition of terrorism. That's a threat to all of us as a country, isn't it?
I'm not sure why that's the definition of terrorism.
Well, it's a terrorist act to harm our ability to defend ourselves.
I wouldn't have any problem with them being strung up for treason, for example. I mean, there's plenty of other legislation and other ways that you can deal with them. Mm-hmm. My issue here is this definition of terrorism at a time when the government isn't even able to assert genuine terrorists, which are Iran. So after you remember the 9 arrests that were made across London, I think it was in March, and speaking in Parliament, Dan Jarvis, the security minister, he said that since 2022, there had been 20 foiled attempts of the IRGC attempts that were aimed at loss of life, and they'd been foiled, and the MI5 released this information. So you've got this government that's completely toothless on a number of issues. Not just on this. I mean, we look at sort of the way Lucy Connolly has been treated. We look at the fact that they're backwards and forwards on the grooming gangs. Do we trust them to keep us safe? And I would say, where I do agree with you, Jonathan, I would say that the people who are at the moment fighting to keep us safe are Israelis, are the IDF, are the people who are prepared to just go for it and tackle Iran. And I would say to people who are not Jewish, I would say to people watching this from home, Brits who are looking at this, say, well, what have the government really done recently to tackle terrorism versus what have Israel done? I mean, you showed in your clip there in the lead-up about Glastonbury yesterday, where they're talking about death to the IDF. The people of Israel are sending their sons and daughters to fight against terrorism. It's not just, don't think just the IDF. Think there are people in this country whose children are in the army that they are worrying about continuously, and then we have idiots like that at Glastonbury making these kinds of things. So what has the British government done about terrorism compared to what have the young people of Israel done about terrorism? And I know which side I come down on.
Yeah, I mean, the case would go that proscribing Palestine Action would make the Jewish community in the UK safer. But is it just...
It's not just the Jewish community,
well,
though.
And the country.
Those RAF planes were not defending Jews. Those RAF planes are to defend all of us in Britain. These people broke into a British Air Force base and trashed some of the aeroplanes.
But can't this be covered under other laws, though? Does it need to actually be a terrorist?
Maybe it can. I mean, I'm not... You know what? I'm not too bothered to get bogged down on whether Mark, who is a wonderful guy, and you are a wonderful guy, and I, who I hope I'm all right, whether we agree or disagree on the precise technical definition of terrorism. If you want to get them for something else and stop them, I'll be happy with that too. I would say that I can see a strong argument for why you could class it as terrorism if they have broken into a military base and sabotaged planes, and if they plan to keep doing that. And if they instill terror or fear into the population in pursuit of their own ideology, their own politics, I would say that does qualify in some people's definition of terrorism. But that's not the only way to get them. For sure, vandalism, for sure, trespass, for sure, breaking and entry. Mark suggested treason. I'm not familiar with the technicalities of the treason law in this country. You could get them on a number of issues. This government, I agree agree, is not keeping Jews or British people safe enough because it doesn't get any of these people on any of these crimes. In fact, at protests where people are threatening, chanting against Jews, threatening Jews physically, they arrest the Jews, or they arrest the people who are there in defence of Jews and the freedoms that we should enjoy in this country, challenged by those very thugs on our streets, challenged by the people that those thugs say they're speaking out in favour of around the world. The government is not doing enough. On terrorism, those foiled attempts by the IRGC were foiled by our government and security services. So I won't say that they're doing nothing. They are doing quite a lot, and probably we don't know the half of it. But that doesn't really help the fact that Jewish people in this country, and dozens of them write to me every week or two about their views, are scared. And more than scared, we're not a stupid people. When our time is up in a place, hopefully many of us have learned that we shouldn't leave it too late. And more Jewish people are telling me and telling each other openly that they're thinking of going. They're thinking of leaving because this country doesn't feel safe for either them or their children. And I will say that's really good that they should be thinking that way, because I agree. But what I worry about is, what are ordinary British people who aren't Jewish going to do? Where are they going to go? Because this isn't just a threat to Jewish people. This is a threat to Western freedoms and democracy. This is a threat to our values. Jews may come first, but once we've gone through our own move or through something worse, they will surely move on to everybody else. They already have. They've blown up British children in Manchester Arena in the name of the same sort of ideology that the IDF is fighting. The British government of any colour or stripe needs to get serious and deal with this stuff properly, whether it's through terrorism legislation or others. This is just the end of the line for this kind of tolerance, of this kind of violence, intimidation and bullying of the population into very unpopular positions and views.
Oh, you get a round of applause now. I mean, I think that a lot of we are agreeing on many things here.
Best debate ever.
Yeah, best debate ever. But I guess when it comes down to the fact that actually there is a problem here where the government might be seeing this as an easy target, where they're not making the hard decisions to actually tackle real terrorism in this country and going after what's seen as maybe more of a soft target. Now, I don't think these are good guys. The Palestine Action, they have supposedly and they have been arrested, some of them, for these actions, but attacked a Jewish business in a Jewish area. So when we talk about terror, that is terrorism being spread there. Jewish artifacts of mezuzah being covered in paint, windows being smashed because they thought there was some connection to an arms business, and it turns out that there wasn't. So what do you think the government should do? Would it make it, if the government did prescribe the Iranian guards, would that make you happy? Would that be the step that you would prefer to see?
I think that would make me happier in the sense that at least it is a step. But I suspect, I have a suspicion that the reason they're going after Palestine Action is because they don't want to have these cases in court. So you remember the Edward Colston statue? I don't know if you recall, but what happened there was the people who pushed the statue into the river got away with it. The jury found them not guilty or no case. I can't remember the terminology. There are some people from Palestine Action who have committed similar acts who have been found not guilty by the jury. And that's predicated on this kind of self-righteous moral idea that they're somehow saving the people of Gaza by intervening. So I suspect that the British government doesn't want to have these kinds of cases and doesn't want them to appear in court because they don't want to have to make the argument, like we were talking about a moment ago, about why we should stand with Israel. So actually, I think we shouldn't let them off the hook. I think we should push that. I think it would be fantastic if one of these cases went to court and people made a showcase out of it and said there is no genocide in Gaza. This is all a myth. All of these people are spreading lies, whether it's at Glastonbury, whether it's Sally Rooney, whether it's Lammy, the arms embargoes. All of these things are contributing to that. And that's what we need to challenge. And I think allowing them to get away with looking like they're doing something over Palestine Action would be a real terrible situation to get into.
And I would say they are lies, and those people know they're lies, at least when it comes to people like Lamy and Keir Starmer. I firmly believe that they know when they make these performative acts, like these partial arms embargoes and these sorts of statements, they do understand they're doing this for other reasons. When it comes to actual close collaboration with the Israelis, especially on intelligence, they know that in that relationship, this country, the United Kingdom, benefits far more than Israel in those two-way conversations. And so I think that it is absolutely shameful that when Israel is in its moment of need and when it is engaged in this war, in which it's still doing pretty well against those forces, Britain hasn't come out and stood there in strength behind Israel without all these shows for people they believe won't like them if they actually come out and say what they know and think. I know that many of them know the truth about this, and it's time that they actually had the strength and courage to say it out loud so that the public can actually also speak out. So many people in the British public also know this and realise this, and there is a sense of the emperor's new clothes. If somebody will actually speak out, and more of us speak out, but if some people at the top start to say these things as well, I think we will see a shift. And I think that this is why many of these groups, which are terrorist or not terrorist, but are certainly intimidating and violent at times, feel so free and able to act in this way, because nobody is stopping them, whether it's statements or actions from the government, from the judiciary, from the police. They are not being stopped for things which are clearly against the law. If we can start doing that and actually speaking the truth, then along with things like proscribing Palestine Action as a terrorist group and the IRGC, we can get serious on these threats to all Britons and especially to Jewish people.
Interesting. OK, well, that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call nuance. Also, I would argue that when it comes to free speech, people who support Palestine Action can just, instead support just regular anti-Semites as well. So, thank you very much for joining us, Jonathan Sajidoti and Mark Birbeck.
Thank you.